Hello, writing friends. It's Miss Lytle saying welcome to another day of writing. Today is session 9, and we will be elaborating on the important parts. So, for the past few writing sessions, we've been working on editing or revising by looking at our story structure and using the story mountain, and by looking at our meaning by asking the question, what is my story really about? So now we want to think about revising in a way where we bring out the structure of our writing and also bring out the meaning at the same time. And you're thinking, okay, Miss Lytle, but how do we do that and do it at the same time? I'm happy you asked. That brings me to today's teaching point. So, writers. Writers vary the pace of the story for a reason. Writers elaborate on particular parts of a story to make readers slow down and pay attention to those specific scenes. So let me give you an example that's not writing to compare to it. So let's pretend you are touring New York City with maybe a friend or your parents, and you're in a tour bus. And so sometimes the driver is going faster through neighborhoods that are fairly typical or regular. And then sometimes the driver slows down and it's time to really check out the area because it's exciting. And the driver really wants you to take the time to see it. So when it comes to your writing, guess what? You are the driver and you are taking your reader through your writing. So you want to be able to slow down at parts where you want your reader to pay attention and then speed up at the parts that maybe aren't as important. And we do this to show what the story is really about. So if we know what it's really about, then we can help ourselves by slowing down the writing at the important parts when we go back and edit. So there are some strategies we can use to help us do this. So let's look at this chart. Here are some strategies for elaborating on the important parts. We can do this by slowing down the action, telling it bit by bit. We can also add some dialogue. We can give more details. We can show small actions, or we can also add some internal thinking. So let's go back and let's look at Mrs. Hitchcad's writing again, and let's see how she used elaborating to revise her story. So let's look at her first draft. Last year, I was reading aloud for Mrs. Hamill's class at Hickory Elementary, and for a moment, everything was okay. But it was so hot with our air conditioner broken, the sweat was rolling down my cheeks. I stopped and went over to open the window. I pushed, but it was stuck. I pushed again and it was still stuck. I thought, things never work in this school. I pushed again and paint chips flew down from the window frame all over my head. Okay, so it's a great story to begin with, right? But remember, Mrs. Hitchcock really didn't want her readers to focus on the thought that the school was falling apart and that she did that all by herself. What she wanted to focus on was her class. Look at that word right at the beginning of her story. I was reading aloud for Mrs. Hamill's class. That was the important part. So how did this same story happen with the class in mind? So let's read it again, knowing that that is the important part of her story, and let's see how she expanded on it and used some of our strategies. So let's look at her new version. Last year, I was reading aloud for Mrs. Hamill's class at Hickory Elementary School. I could see sweat rolling down the cheeks of all of my students. So I walked to the window while still reading and with one hand tried to open it. The window didn't budge. Even after I put the book down and heaved, the window remained stuck. Then Gary jumped up, joined me at the window, saying, "I'll help." Soon 4 others were beside him, and together we heaved at the heavy window. The class cheered as the window rose, and we felt like a victorious team. Did you see which strategies she used? Take a look. I see right here. She started talking about her class from the very beginning. She added some details of the sweat rolling down the cheeks of all of her students. Already it's focused on her class. And then she added some more small details. The window didn't budge. And then what did she add? Some small actions. Gary jumped up. 4 others got up and helped. And she even added a little bit of dialogue when Gary said, "I'll help." So all she did was take little strategies and expanded on the important parts to make the true meaning of her writing come through. So guess what, writers? It's your turn. Yes, you get to be the driver of your writing, and you get to think about what's important in your story. What's it all about? And then where do I need to go back and slow down and stretch it out so that I can drive my readers around and they can focus on the important parts. So here's what you're going to do today, writers. You are going to open up your virtual writer's notebook and you're going to think about a small narrative that you have started that has really important parts to it. Add today's date so your teacher knows that it's today's writing, and then select a strategy or maybe even two to use when revising your small moment narrative in order to elaborate important parts. So, which strategies are you going to use today? Off you go, writers.